this argument for a long time because more recently there's been a tendency to blame Clinton. That Clinton cut the CIA budget and therefore they couldn't manage to maintain stations around the world. They had to cut back on their station chiefs and the clandestine operation. Therefore there was a decline in human, in the collection that we collected clandestinely. Again, I have a contrarian view. One, there's been a great exaggeration of the role of human. Human is not nearly as important as people believe it is. And maybe it could be if we knew how to do it, but I don't know if any country knows how to do it that well. I was with the CIA for 24 years, working on the Soviet Union. There was never a Soviet source recruited by the director of operations of the CIA in that period of time. I'm not saying we didn't have assets, but they were walk-ins, they were defectors. Whether you're talking about someone as important as Colonel Kotowski or some of the other sources I can think of that were very vital on some military issues. So I think there's a tremendous exaggeration of the role of human. The other part of that argument is that somehow the CIA has gotten more risk-averse because of the pressure of people like Jimmy Carter and Bill Clinton, and that is really far-fetched. The CIA has always been risk-averse. That's why we put people overseas with diplomatic cover, so that if something happens to an operation or to an individual, he has diplomatic protection. He can be made, persona non grata, and taken out of the country, but he can't be thrown into a prison. And we protect our people that way because we're not a paranoid society, and there are certain principles that we do indeed honor. So I don't think there's been any decline. I think there's always been limits on what you can do with human intelligence, with so-called human. And even though we have a problem now because we have these very expensive, sophisticated platforms that you cite correctly, they're of limited utility against a terrorist threat. That's the real problem. You know, we've collected intelligence and developed programs in a strategic age in which we were counting Soviet missiles or launched Soviet submarines or Soviet aircraft, which satellite photography did very well. Or again, standing armies that set off circuits that allowed the National Security Agency to intercept signals or intercept communications on code. Again, very good in an age where you might have war or confrontation in the third world. But how do you look into the mind of an extremist, of a terrorist, of a nihilistic terrorist who is so cautious and paranoid about security that they don't use the internet or they refuse to use phones in certain operations? You know, 9/11 was an extremely sophisticated operation that cost only about a couple $100,000. There was a lot of damage. It didn't threaten the United States, but a lot of damage was done to the United States with that operation. So really, the field has changed. The security threat has changed, and we need to change the way we collect. But it has nothing to do with the downgrading of human. On Valerie Plame, I found that case much more interesting than the media found it to be, and most people in the country found it to be. I think the media failed America in the Valerie Plame case. It was very interesting to me that if you look at the 19 witnesses in the Scooter Libby trial, 10 of them were journalists. And they were journalists, by and large, that were not doing the job of what the press is supposed to do, and the reason why we have First Amendment rights in terms of freedom of the press. They were cooperating with the Bush administration and the government in outing a clandestine operative such as Valerie Plame. And it was outrageous. And it was done really to protect the reasons why this government went to war, which were based on specious arguments for the most part. Because to me, that's what the Valerie Plame trial is all about. The fact that this administration did not want to get to the bottom of this, did not conduct any counterintelligence investigations any more than it did for the Niger fabrication, did not fire people who were involved. The fact that Cheney wasn't an unindicted co-conspirator shows that we did not want to get to the bottom of that, and that we missed an opportunity to understand how we went to war. Because what Valerie Plame's husband did, who, I don't know Valerie, but I know Joe Wilson, what he did was expose the phoniness of the argument with regard to enriched uranium. And he was sent out there for a reason. He was sent out there by the CIA to get Dick Cheney off their backs. It was Dick Cheney who was hammering the CIA over and over again about nuclear reconstitution, that the smoking gun shouldn't be a mushroom cloud. And they hoped by sending an ambassador out there who spoke French, who had left the State Department and gone into the energy extraction area, knew the field of uranium production, knew the French people who ran the consortium, that he would get to the bottom of this. And what the press never acknowledged was he wasn't the only one to go out. The Pentagon sent out a 3-star Marine general, and the State Department sent an ambassador. All three came back and reported to their agencies that there's nothing to this argument. But Cheney could not be disabused. He would not let go of it. So the argument, to me, should be about why was this one point in this one document so important to Cheney? And why was this so vital that you went to the step of not only outing a clandestine operative, but one who didn't have State Department cover, one who had very expensive non-official cover, which the CIA does very rarely, operating in an important area of national security dealing with the proliferation of possible weapons of mass destruction. The fact that Novak was the only journalist out of the 6 does not surprise me, because I have always considered Novak, as Jon Stewart calls him, a scumbag. In fact, that name came as no shock to me. But what he did was to out a very important clandestine operative in terms of the national security interests of the United States, which is why that law was passed in 1982 to protect the identities of intelligence officers. So we learned a lot, but not necessarily about Valerie Plame per se.
So, our conversation this afternoon, intelligence was spoken about like little snippets. You find this, you find that. And you talked about the successes of the CIA, certainly explored the understanding of the Middle East. Do you think, you used the word the threat we face today, Norman Performance has this article we're dealing with. Every student in this room has either read or knows about George Kenn's Mr. X article. Do you think we have seen a Mr. X article yet? I mean, Bush has managed to unite the Arabs, the Sunnis and the Shiites, the Arabs and the Iranians, the conservative people and the radical people. Muslims are not, and he's been an equal opportunity uniter of everyone against us. So the question then becomes, who is the George Kennan today? How do we figure this out? That's what the CIA also does, isn't it? We should go a little bit on that.
Well, yeah.
And I don't expect you to be a George Kennan, but I'm
not
curious to know where we are.
I taught at the National War College, where he wrote the Mr. X article, by the way, and we would take turns on certain days sitting at his desk to say we sat at the desk and wrote the Mr. X article. There can't be a Mr. X article today because we don't face an existential threat. And no matter what kind of nervous dance Dick Cheney or Rumsfeld or Wolfowitz or Condoleezza Rice want to do, they could never make the case. The language is very bold, and the comparison of the threat is always to the Nazis or to the Soviet communists, but this is terrible hyperbole that I don't think people are buying. What you cite is the more devastating argument, which is the reverse side of all of this, that look who has won from our decision to go into Iraq. Iran has been a major victor. The oil states, in terms of the price of oil, they've been a major victor. Al-Qaeda, and here to me is the most important self-fulfilling self-fulfilling prophecy in my history. That is when Bush went before the public in September 2003 and called Iraq the center of the war against terrorism. We created that center. There was no terrorism in Iraq. There were no Al-Qaeda operatives in Iraq. Zarqawi wasn't allowed to roam free in Iraq. He was pretty much holed up in the northern part of the country.